Tupuna Digital Tours presents the tracing of our ancestors' footsteps for the past 210 years, belonging to our whānau White and Brown. Our ancestors are George William White and Te Rangono, parents of Charlotte Elizabeth Brown. This video is intended to show you how you can navigate this whakapapa inside of Google Earth. So just come down to the arrow down here and click next. Charlotte Brown was born in 1837 in Harata, New Zealand, to Te Rangono and George William White. This was just before the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi. And Charlotte's also known as Harata Paraone or Mrs. T.W. Brown after her husband Thomas William Brown. There's also some more information there on the site. So somewhere between 1840 and 1850, Charlotte's taken to Australia by her father George, along with her mother, Te Rangono, who's pregnant with their second child. Te Rangono dies in childbirth, and we assume so too does the baby. It's believed that Te Rangono was buried at Martin's Place, Sydney, Australia. However, this is most unlikely, as the cemetery back then was known as the Old Sydney Cemetery, and it was closed to burials by 1820 as it was too full. So there's some more information here on the site if you want to find out more. As an interesting side note, in 1853, Thomas Haggar dies and is likely buried at Camperdown Cemetery in Newton, Sydney, Australia. He's the husband to Charlotte Elizabeth Haggar, and they have been married for 12 years since 1841. And the reason why this is interesting is because it said that Charlotte Brown was raised by her auntie Charlotte Haggar. You could do some tracking here. So there's some more information on the site here. On the 15th of September 1855, at the age of 18, Charlotte White marries with Thomas William Brown, who's aged 23, in Balmain, Sydney, New South Wales, in the presence of her auntie Charlotte Elizabeth Haggar and a James Richard. 1872, 5th of November, James Herbert Hosier Brown is born in Hobson Street, Auckland, to Charlotte and Thomas Brown. He is their last child and child number 8. Now, their place on Hobson Street is most likely across from the old Governor Brown Hotel that sat on the junction of Hobson Street and Gorse Lane. In 1880, 10th of May, James Brown dies at the age of 42 in Auckland. He's the younger brother of Thomas William Brown and is buried in plot E187 in Simon Street Cemetery, Grafton, Auckland. 2 years later, on the 20th of May, Thomas William Brown dies from a stroke at the age of 50 in his residence on Karangahape Road, otherwise today known as K Road, and is buried in plot E186 in Simon Street Cemetery, Grafton. The death notice says, Thomas William Brown, shipbroker and commission agent, an old colonist and resident in the city, Auckland, native of Gibraltar, born in 1832, arrived in Auckland 1856 from Sydney, marries the daughter of Mr. G. W. White, George William, now of Taupo, whose brother was murdered by the Māori of Ohiwa of Potski. This brother we know is Abraham Bennett White. Now, Thomas William Brown leaves a wife and 8 children, 4 sons, 4 daughters. And you'll find there's some more information with links on the site. Three years later, on the 7th of February 1885, George Thomas Brown, son of Thomas and Charlotte Brown, dies from typhoid fever at the age of 22 and is buried in plot E185 at Simon Street Cemetery, Auckland. In 1899, James Herbert Hosier Brown has his first child in Levuka, Fiji. His name, or the name of this child, is James Brown, otherwise known as Jimmy. And the mother's name is Hasandi. She's an Indian woman who comes to Fiji on the indenture system. In 1900 is the birth of James Herbert Hosea Brown's second and third child in Whalewau Upolu, Samoa. That is Charlotte Brown, born to Tina Catalina Tofaiono, and the third child, Agnes, also born to Tina. In 1902, James Herbert Hosea Brown's fourth child is born, Charles Thomas Brown, also born to Tina in Whalewai Whavau, Tonga. In 1903, James Herbert Hosea Brown's fifth child is born in Kolomotua, Nuku'alofa, Tonga. This is Annie Frances Brown, also born to Tina. This is where things get a little interesting. Between 1905 and 1920, James Herbert Hosea Brown's 6th to 20th child is born in Pāngai Lefuka, Hāpai, Tonga. So in 1905, we have Elise, born to Emma Luisa Manu Mateaolono Tupo. In 1905, we have Nina, born to Tina. 1906, Eleanor, born to Emma. 1908, Stanley, born to Tina. 1908, Makaleta, born to Emma. 1909, Winnie, born to Tina. 1909, Siose, born to Emma. 1910, Mary, born to Tina. 1911, Alipate, born to Emma. 1912, Robert, born to Tina. 1913, Anne, born to Emma. 1914, Aleki Sanita, born to Emma. 1916, Louisa, born to Emma. 1917, Esther, born to Siene. And 1920, Afa, born to Emma. On the 11th of December 1921, at the age of 84, Charlotte Brown went into a coma from a cerebral hemorrhage and died on the 16th of December 1921 in Epsom, Auckland, on 73 Market Road. This is at the home of her oldest child, her daughter Frances and Singh. Two days later, Charlotte Brown is buried on the 18th of December at 1:30 p.m. at Simon Street Cemetery in her own plot by Reverend Connolly, as noted by the funeral directors, Watney and Cybran Records. So we also have on the site her death certificate and the records from the funeral director, Watney and Cybran. The interesting thing is that this organisation is still around today, and this is a new piece of evidence that we actually picked up recently. In 1924, James Herbert Hosea Brown has his 21st and 22nd child born in Auckland. So Emmeline is born to Tina in 1924, and James is born to Tina in 1925. In 1927, Douglas is born to Tina, back in Pāngai Lefuku, Hāpai, Tonga. And we also have Alciva, born to Mele. "30th of October 1951, James Herbert Hosea Brown dies at the age of 78 and is buried in Pāngai, Hāpai, Tonga." And this is where we end our tour. Thank you.